The bridge of the Valiant Dawn was quiet. Too quiet for a ship that had just won a war. Commander Jack Miller stood at the main viewport staring out at the stars. His reflection looked back at him, a tired man with too many battles behind his eyes. "Commander?" "The transmission is coming through," Lieutenant Sophie Grant said from her station. Jack turned away from the window. 15 years. 15 years of fighting, of losing friends, of watching planets burn. And now it was over. The Valoran Empire was surrendering. The holographic display flickered to life. A Valoran official appeared, his silver skin catching the light from the bridge. His head crest drooped low, a sign of defeat among his people. Jack had learned to read their body language over the years. You had to when you were fighting them. "Commander Miller," the Valoran said, "Emperor Draven has authorized our surrender." "The war is over." Jack nodded slowly. He should feel something. Victory, relief, joy. But there was only emptiness. "Understood. We'll arrange the formal ceremony." The transmission ended. Sophie looked at him, waiting. She had been with him for 5 years, ever since the battle at Corvus Station. She knew him well enough to see the hollow look in his eyes. "It's really over, sir," she said softly. "Yeah," Jack replied. "It's over." But it didn't feel over. The ghosts of the dead didn't care about surrender documents. Far across space on the Valoran homeworld of Thessera, Princess Lyra stood in a different war room. The walls were covered with maps and battle reports. Her father, Emperor Draven, sat at the head of the table. He looked older than his years. "It is done," he said. His voice was heavy with shame. "We have surrendered to the humans." Lyra felt her heart tighten. She had argued against this war from the beginning, but her uncle, the military commander, had pushed for it. He believed the humans were weak, that they could be easily conquered. He had been wrong. Very wrong. "What happens now?" Lyra asked. "There will be a ceremony on Haven Point Station. Neutral ground." Her father looked at her. "You will come with me. Our people need to see that the royal family stands together, even in defeat." Lyra bowed her head. "Of course, father." Later, alone in her chambers, Lyra reviewed the files about the human delegation. Names, faces, service records. She needed to know who she would be meeting. Her eyes stopped on one name: Commander Jack Miller. Something about the name felt familiar, like a song she had heard long ago but couldn't quite remember. She stared at his photo. A human man, dark hair, tired eyes. Had she seen him before? It seemed impossible. The war had kept them apart for so long. She closed the file and tried to push the feeling away. It was probably nothing. On the Valiant Dawn, Jack sat in his quarters. The room was small and plain. He had never bothered to decorate it. What was the point? He was a soldier. Soldiers didn't need comfortable homes, but he hadn't always been a soldier. The photograph on his desk showed a younger Jack, maybe 12 years old. He was standing next to 2 adults, his parents. They were scientists, xenobiologists. They had loved studying alien cultures. They had believed that humans and aliens could live together in peace. Then the war came. The research station where they worked was one of the first casualties. Jack had been away at school on Earth. He never saw his parents again. Sophie knocked on his door. "Sir, the briefing for the ceremony is in 10 minutes. "I'll be there," Jack said. He looked at the photograph one more time. His parents had been wrong about peace. The universe was cruel. But they had been right about one thing. Aliens weren't monsters. They were just people, fighting for their own survival. Just like humans, the briefing room was full of officers. They were planning the ceremony, discussing security, protocols, all the boring details of peace. Jack listened with half his attention. His mind kept drifting to the past. 20 years ago, before the war, he had lived on that research station. It was a special place, one of the few where humans and Valerans lived side by side. His parents had been part of a program to build understanding between the species, and there had been a Valoran girl. "A friend," Jack shook his head. That was a lifetime ago. She was probably dead now, like so many others. The war had taken everything from everyone. "Commander Miller?" Someone was calling his name. He focused. "Yes? Will you be bringing a security detail to the ceremony?" "Just Lieutenant Grant," Jack said. "We're trying to show good faith. Too many guards would send the wrong message." The briefing continued. Plans were made. Details were arranged. In 3 days, they would meet the Valorans at Haven Point. They would sign documents and shake hands and pretend that 15 years of death could be forgiven with signatures and speeches. Jack didn't believe in any of it, but he would do his duty. On Thesara, Princess Lyra prepared for the journey. Her servants packed formal robes and diplomatic papers. She rehearsed the words she would need to say. Everything had to be perfect. The ceremony would be broadcast across both civilizations. Everyone would be watching. Her personal guard, Commander Vex, stood at attention by her door. He was a veteran of the war, scarred and serious. He didn't trust humans. He didn't trust peace, Your Highness, he said. I still believe this is a mistake. The humans cannot be trusted. We lost the war, Vex, Lyra replied. We have no choice but to trust. We could rebuild. Fight again in 10 years. Lyra turned to face him. Her violet eyes were hard. No more war. No more death. If this peace fails, it won't be because we didn't try. Vex bowed his head. He didn't agree, but he would obey. The ships prepared to depart. Human and Valoran all heading to the same place. Haven Point Station waited in the darkness between stars, a neutral meeting ground built years ago for trade and diplomacy. Now it would host the end of a war. Jack stood on the bridge of the Valiant Dawn as they entered hyperspace. The stars stretched into lines of light. 3 days. In 3 days he would face the enemy. Not as a warrior, but as a diplomat. He wondered if he even remembered how to talk instead of fight. The journey to Haven Point took 3 days. For Jack, they were 3 days of memories he didn't want. He kept thinking about the research station, about being 12 years old, about a time before the war, when the future seemed bright and full of possibilities. The station had been called New Horizon. It was small, orbiting a quiet moon in neutral space. 20 human families lived there, along with 15 Valoran families. They were trying to prove that the two species could coexist. Jack's parents had been excited about the project. His mother studied Valoran biology. His father researched their culture and language. They would talk for hours about what they learned, their faces bright with enthusiasm. Jack, his mother had said once, someday you'll live in a universe where humans and Valorans are friends, real friends. We're building that future. He had believed her. He had been young and foolish enough to believe. On the station there had been a Valoran girl, the daughter of a diplomat. She was the same age as Jack, though Valorans aged differently. Her name was Lyra. They had become friends almost immediately. While the adults worked, the children explored the station together. Lyra taught Jack words in her language. He taught her how to play human games. They would sit in the observation deck for hours looking at the stars, making up stories about distant worlds. What do you want to be when you grow up? Lyra had asked him once. A xenobiologist like my mom, Jack had answered. I want to study aliens, learn about them, help people understand each other. Lyra had smiled. Her violet eyes sparkled. I want that too. We could work together, build bridges between our people. They had made a promise that day. They would stay friends forever. They would work for peace. 2 years later, the war began. The station was destroyed in the first wave of attacks. Jack never saw Lyra again, sir. Sophie's voice broke through his thoughts. We're approaching Haven Point, Jack blinked. He was on the bridge of the Valiant Dawn, not in his memories. Thank you, Lieutenant. Haven Point Station appeared on the view screen. It was a massive structure shaped like a wheel, slowly rotating in space. Lights dotted its surface. Ships from both sides were already docked. Take us in, Jack ordered. Princess Lyra stood at the viewport of her ship, watching Haven Point grow larger. Her father stood beside her, silent and thoughtful. I remember when this station was built, Emperor Draven said, 10 years before the war. We believed it would be a place of friendship and trade. It still can be, Lyra said. Her father looked at her. You were always the optimist. Like your mother. Lyra's mother had died in the war, a bombing on Thesara's second moon. Lyra had been 17. She still remembered the day she learned her mother was gone, the way the world suddenly felt cold and empty. Someone has to believe in peace, Father, Lyra said quietly. Or what was the point of any of this? Their ship docked. Commander Vex appeared at Lyra's side, his hand on his weapon. He didn't trust this place. Too many humans. Too many enemies. Stay close, Your Highness, he said. They walked through the docking bay and into the station proper. Haven Point was bustling with activity. Diplomats, reporters, security personnel. Everyone wanted to witness history. The ceremonial hall was in the center of the station. It was a large, circular room with a high ceiling. Banners from both civilizations hung on the walls. A long table sat in the middle with chairs for the delegates. Lyra entered with her father and their entourage. Across the room she saw the humans arriving. Her eyes scanned the group, looking for threats, looking for anything suspicious. Then she saw him, a human man wearing a dark blue uniform. Commander's insignia on his shoulder, he moved with the careful grace of a trained warrior, but there was something else, something in the way he held himself, something familiar. Their eyes met across the room. Jack felt like someone had punched him in the chest. The Valoran woman standing with Emperor Dravon, silver skin, graceful posture, and those eyes, violet eyes, the same shade he remembered from 20 years ago. It couldn't be. His childhood friend had been the daughter of a minor diplomat. This was a princess, the Emperor's daughter. It was impossible, but those eyes, he would never forget those eyes. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. The human commander, the way he stood, the shape of his face, she knew him. But how? Where? Then it hit her like a wave. The research station, the human boy who had been her friend. Jack. But Jack had been a child, full of dreams about studying aliens and building peace. This man was a soldier, hardened by war. Could they really be the same person? The ceremony began. Speeches were made. Emperor Dravon spoke about the cost of war and the hope for peace. The human president, appearing by hologram, said similar things. Politicians always said the same things. Documents were signed. Hands were shaken. Cameras recorded everything. The war was officially over. Through it all, Jack and Lyra kept stealing glances at each other. Each time their eyes met, there was a spark of recognition. A question neither could ask aloud. After the ceremony, there was a reception. Diplomats mingled, making small talk, pretending the war had never happened. Jack stood near the wall, holding a drink he wasn't going to consume. He hated these events. Sophie appeared at his elbow. "Sir, you look like you've seen a ghost." "Maybe I have," Jack muttered. Sophie followed his gaze. He was looking at the Valoran princess. "Do you know her?" "I think I might," Jack said. "A long time ago." Sophie was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You should talk to her. I can't just walk up to a princess. You're a war hero and a commander. I think you can talk to whoever you want." Sophie gave him a gentle push. "Go, I'll cover for you." Jack took a breath. This was stupid. He was probably wrong. It was just wishful thinking, seeing familiar faces in strangers. But he had to know. He crossed the room, weaving between groups of talking people. His heart was pounding. He felt like a nervous child again, not a decorated soldier. Princess Lyra stood near a window looking out at the stars. Commander Vex stood a few paces behind her, watching everything with suspicious eyes. Jack stopped a respectful distance away. "Your Highness, may I have a moment of your time?" Lyra turned. Up close, she was even more familiar. The shape of her face, the way she tilted her head slightly when thinking. "Commander Miller," she said. Her voice was calm, but he could hear something underneath. Uncertainty. Hope. Of course. They stood in awkward silence for a moment. Two people who had once been friends, now strangers, separated by war and time. Finally, Jack spoke. "This might sound strange, but have we met before? Before the war, I mean." Lyra's eyes widened slightly. "I was wondering the same thing." Jack's heart raced. "Did you ever live on a research station? One called New Horizon?" The words hung in the air between them. Lyra's hand went to her mouth. Her eyes filled with tears. "Jack?" she whispered. "Is it really you?" Jack felt his throat tighten. Hearing his name in her voice brought back a flood of memories. "Lyra, I can't believe it's you." "I thought you were dead," Lyra said. Her voice shook. "When the station was destroyed, I thought everyone died. I was at school on Earth. My parents." Jack couldn't finish the sentence. Even after all these years, it hurt. "I'm so sorry." Lyra reached out, then stopped. They weren't children anymore. They were representatives of two civilizations that had spent 15 years trying to kill each other. I didn't know. My family left the station 2 months before the attack. My father was called back to Thessera for an emergency. Commander Vex moved closer, his hand on his weapon. "Your Highness, perhaps we should return to the delegation." "Give us a moment, Vex." Lyra said firmly. Jack looked around. People were staring. A human commander and a Velaran princess talking privately. It looked suspicious. We should find somewhere more private. People are watching. Lyra nodded. There's a garden observation deck on the upper level. We can talk there. They walked through the station, Vex following at a distance. Sophie caught Jack's eye and gave him a small nod. She would make excuses if anyone asked where he went. The garden deck was quiet. Real plants grew here, maintained by the station's automated systems, a mix of human and Velaran species, living side by side. The viewport showed the stars, endless and bright. They stood in silence for a moment, both trying to find words. "I can't believe you became a soldier," Lyra said finally. "You wanted to be a scientist. You wanted to study life, not take it." Jack's jaw tightened. The war took that choice from me. After my parents died, I had nothing left. The military gave me a purpose, a way to channel my anger. I tried to stop the war, Lyra said. Before it started, I argued with my uncle, with the council. But no one listened to me. I was just a princess. What did I know about military strategy? "Your uncle was General Corvin?" Jack asked. He knew the name. Every human soldier knew that name. Yes. He believed humans were a threat that needed to be eliminated. Lyra's voice was bitter. He paid for that belief. He died in the final battle. They stood side by side, looking at the stars, the same stars they had looked at as children, making wishes and promises. "Do you remember the game we used to play?" Jack asked. "The one with the constellations?" A small smile touched Lyra's lips. "Where we would make up stories about the stars. You said that one cluster looked like a dragon, and you said it looked like a flower. We spent an hour arguing about it." Jack laughed. It felt strange, laughing. He hadn't done it in so long. "You were so stubborn." "I was stubborn?" "You refused to admit I was right. For a moment it was like being children again. Then reality crashed back. 20 years had passed. They weren't the same people anymore." "What happened to us, Lyra?" Jack asked quietly. "We promised we'd stay friends. We promised we'd work for peace. We were children," Lyra said. "We didn't know the universe was so cruel. Maybe we should have fought harder to keep that promise." Lyra turned to face him. "You fought harder than anyone. You became a warrior. You won the war. And you became a princess. You survived your people's defeat with grace. I didn't want to be graceful. I wanted to scream. I wanted to rage against the waste of it all." Lyra's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Do you know how many of my friends died? How many people I loved?" "Yes," Jack said. "I do know. I buried most of my crew myself." They were quiet again. The weight of shared grief hung between them. "I heard what you did at the Battle of Centaurus," Lyra said. "You saved a Velaran civilian ship, even though it meant abandoning your tactical position." Jack shrugged. "They were innocent people, families. I wasn't going to let them die just to win a battle." "That decision cost you a promotion." "I don't care about promotions." Lyra studied his face. "You're still the same Jack. Under all that armor and those scars. You still care." "Don't make me out to be a hero," Jack said. "I've done terrible things. I've killed people, Velaran people, your people. And I've ordered strikes that killed humans," Lyra said. "I was part of the War Council. Every battle plan crossed my desk. I share responsibility for every human death. So we're both covered in blood. Yes." They stood in the weight of that truth. Two people who had once been innocent, now carrying the burden of war. "What do we do now?" Jack asked. "Pretend we don't know each other. Go back to being strangers." "I don't want that," Lyra said. "But I don't know what else is possible. You're a human commander. I'm a Velaran princess. Our people are watching us." "Let them watch." "Jack, it's not that simple. There are people on both sides who don't want peace. They'll use any excuse to start the war again. If they see us together, they'll call it a conspiracy. They'll say we're traitors." Jack knew she was right, but he didn't care. Then we'll be careful. We'll be smart. But I'm not losing you again, Lyra. I've lost too much already. Lyra looked at him, her violet eyes searching his face. Then she nodded. Okay, but we need to be careful. We'll find a way. They talked for hours, sharing the stories of the past 20 years. Jack told her about his time in the military, about the battles he fought, about the friends he lost. Lyra told him about growing up in the royal palace, about watching her people suffer, about feeling powerless to stop the war. My father always knew about our friendship, Lyra said. When I was a child on the station, I told him everything. He knew you were special to me. He let you be friends with a human? He believed in the program, in building bridges between our species. That's why he took the diplomatic posting. Lyra smiled sadly. He still believes in it, even after everything. He's a good man. He's a complicated man. But yes, he tries to be good. Commander Vex appeared at the entrance to the garden. Your Highness, we must return. The delegation is preparing to depart. Lyra nodded. She looked at Jack. We'll see each other again? Yes, Jack said. I'll find a way. They walked back together, careful to maintain a proper distance. But Jack's mind was racing. He had found her. Against all odds, Lyra was alive. His childhood friend had become a princess, and he had become a soldier, but the connection was still there. As they reached the main hall, Lyra paused. Jack? Do you remember the rhyme we made up? About the stars? Jack smiled. Diamonds scattered by careless gods. Across the velvet sky they fall, Lyra continued. Each one a wish, a hope, a dream. Each one a story yet untold. They had made it up together, sitting in the observation deck of New Horizon, watching the stars. It had been their special thing. A secret language. I never forgot, Lyra said. Neither did I. She turned to leave, then looked back. Be careful, Jack. There are people who would rather see us at war than at peace. I know. You be careful too. He watched her walk away, back to her father and her delegation. Sophie appeared at his side. So? She asked. Was I right? You were right, Jack said. That's her, my friend from the station. And now? Now we figure out how to build the peace we promised each other 20 years ago. Sophie looked at him. You know people are going to make this complicated. Everything is complicated, Sophie. But for the first time in 15 years, I have a reason to hope. They returned to the Valiant Dawn. As the ship prepared to depart Haven Point, Jack stood at the viewport, looking back at the station. Somewhere in there, Lyra was doing the same thing, looking back, thinking about the future. The war was over, but the real battle was just beginning. 3 days after the ceremony, Jack received a coded message. It came through encrypted channels marked urgent. He read it in his quarters, the door locked. The message was from intelligence. They had intercepted communications about a plot. A group of Valoran officers loyal to the dead General Corvin were planning something. Details were unclear, but the words assassinate and emperor appeared multiple times. Jack's blood ran cold. If Emperor Dravon died, the peace would die with him. The hardliners would take control. The war would start again. He needed to warn someone. But who could he trust? On Thessera, Lyra received a similar report. One of her own intelligence officers brought it to her personally, speaking in whispers. Your Highness, we've uncovered troubling information. A group of humans extremists who believe we should have been destroyed are planning something during the Unity Festival. The Unity Festival. It was scheduled for 2 weeks from now, a celebration to mark the official end of the war. Both Emperor Dravon and the human president would attend. It would be held on Thessera in the capital city. What are they planning? Lyra asked. We don't know exactly. But the chatter mentions attacks. Multiple targets. They want to restart the war. Lyra dismissed the officer and sat alone in her chambers. Her mind raced. She needed help. Someone she could trust. someone who wanted peace as much as she did. She sent an encrypted message to Jack. They met in secret, on a small trading station halfway between human and Valoran space. Jack arrived first, with only Sophie accompanying him. Lyra came with Commander Vex. The four of them sat in a private room protected from listening devices. "We both received intelligence," Jack said. "There are groups on both sides planning to sabotage the peace." "They're working together," Lyra added. "My sources suggest the human extremists have made contact with the Valoran hardliners." Sophie looked grim. "That's bad. If they coordinate their attacks, they could make it look like one side betrayed the other." "The Emperor and the President will both be at the Unity Festival," Vex said. "They're the obvious targets," Jack nodded. "We need to stop them, but we can't do it through official channels. If word gets out about the investigation, the conspirators will just change their plans." "We need a small team," Lyra said. "People we trust completely. People who want peace." "Us four," Sophie said. "No one else." Vex looked uncomfortable. He didn't like humans, but he trusted his princess. "What do you propose?" For the next hour, they planned. They would investigate quietly, following the leads from their intelligence reports. They would share information. They would work together. It felt strange for Jack working alongside Valorans. For 15 years they had been his enemy. Now they were his allies. But it also felt right. This was what he and Lyra had dreamed of as children: cooperation, understanding. Over the next week they met 3 more times. Each meeting brought new information. They discovered that the conspiracy was larger than they thought. Officers in both militaries were involved, politicians, business leaders who had profited from the war. "It's not just about ideology," Jack said during one meeting. "Some of these people became rich from the war. They need conflict to maintain their power. How do we fight that?" Lyra asked. "We're just 4 people. We expose them," Sophie said. "We gather evidence. We make it public. Let the people decide." But gathering evidence was dangerous. Jack and Lyra started spending more time together, coordinating their investigation. They tried to be discreet, but people noticed. On the Valiant Dawn, officers whispered about their commander meeting with the Valoran princess. On Thessera, courtiers gossiped about Lyra's frequent absences. "People are talking," Vex warned Lyra. "They're suspicious." "Let them talk," Lyra said. "We have more important concerns." As they worked together, Jack and Lyra fell into old patterns. The friendship they had shared as children began to resurface. They would finish each other's sentences. They understood each other's thoughts with just a glance. But it was different now. They weren't children. The respect and understanding had deepened into something more. Jack found himself watching Lyra when she wasn't looking, admiring her intelligence and courage. Lyra caught herself smiling at Jack's dry humor, his quiet compassion. Neither of them spoke about it. They both knew it was complicated. Impossible, even. A human and a Valoran, a commander and a princess. Their people were barely at peace. A relationship would be seen as a betrayal, but the feelings were there, growing stronger each day. Their investigation led them to a name: Keller. A human arms dealer who operated in the gray areas between legal and illegal. He had been supplying weapons to both sides during the war. Now he was supplying the conspirators. "If we can get to Keller, we can get proof," Jack said. "Names, records, everything." "Where is he?" Vex asked. "He operates out of a station in the frontier belt. Lawless space. No government control." "Then we go there," Lyra said. "Your Highness, it's too dangerous," Vex protested. "We don't have a choice, Vex. The Unity Festival is in 5 days. If we don't stop this now, thousands will die." They took a small unmarked ship. No flags, no insignia. Just 4 people on a dangerous mission. The frontier belt was everything Jack expected. Rough stations full of smugglers and criminals. The kind of place where asking too many questions got you killed. Keller's base was in the worst part of the worst station. They approached carefully, weapons ready. "Let me do the talking," Jack said. "Arms dealers respect strength." They entered the bar where Keller conducted business. It was dark and smelled of alcohol and sweat. Dangerous people sat at dangerous tables. Keller sat in the back, surrounded by guards. He was a large man with cold eyes. He saw them coming and smiled. Well. A human commander and a Valoran princess. This should be interesting." "We need information," Jack said. "Information costs money. We're not buying. We're taking." Keller laughed. "You think you can threaten me? In my own place? Things happen fast. Keller's guards moved. Jack's hand went to his weapon. But before anyone could fire, alarms blared. "It's a trap," Sophie yelled. The room exploded with gunfire. They had been set up. The conspirators knew they were coming. Jack fired back, taking cover behind a table. Sophie was at his side, her weapon blazing. Across the room, Vex protected Lyra, returning fire with precise shots. "We need to move," Jack shouted. "Back to the ship." They fought their way toward the exit. Bodies fell. Jack tried not to think about who they were, whether they were human or Velaran or something else. Right now, everyone was the enemy. They burst out into the corridor. More guards were coming. They ran, firing behind them. "The ship is 3 levels down," Sophie said. They reached a stairwell. Vex went first, checking for threats. Jack stayed at the rear, covering their escape. Lyra ran between them, then Jack heard it. A weapon charging. He turned and saw a guard with a plasma rifle aimed at Lyra's back. "Lyra, down!" He pushed her out of the way. The blast caught him in the shoulder. Pain exploded through his body. He fell. "Jack!" Lyra's scream echoed in his ears. Vex killed the guard. Sophie grabbed Jack, pulling him up. His shoulder was burning, but he could still move. "I'm okay," he gasped. "Keep moving." They reached the ship. Vex piloted while Sophie worked on Jack's wound. It was bad, but not fatal. The blast had cauterized as it burned. He would survive. Lyra knelt beside him, her hands shaking. "You saved my life." "You would have done the same," Jack said through gritted teeth. "Why did you do that?" "You could have died," Jack looked at her. Even through the pain, he knew the answer. "Because I can't lose you again, not now. Not ever." Lyra's eyes filled with tears. She took his hand. "You're an idiot, Jack Miller." "Yeah, but I'm your idiot." They escaped the station and headed back to safer space. They had failed to capture Keller, but they had learned something important. The conspirators were scared. Scared enough to set a trap. That meant Jack and Lyra were getting close. As Jack recovered, Lyra stayed by his side. Vex and Sophie gave them space, understanding that something had changed between the commander and the princess. "We're running out of time," Lyra said. "The festival is in 3 days." "Then we use what we have," Jack said. "We have names. We have patterns. We can figure out their plan. And if we can't, then we stop them the old-fashioned way. We fight," Lyra smiled despite herself. "You humans, always ready to fight, only when we have to. Only to protect what matters." He squeezed her hand. She squeezed back. They both knew the truth now. They loved each other. It was impossible and complicated and probably doomed, but it was real, and they would face whatever came next together. Jack's shoulder healed faster than expected. "Velaran medical technology," Lyra explained. She had convinced the ship's medical officer to use it on him. It still hurt, but he could move. They had 2 days until the Unity Festival. 2 days to stop a conspiracy that threatened to destroy everything. Working through the night, they pieced together the plan. The conspirators would strike during the Emperor's speech, bombs in the ceremonial square, snipers in the surrounding buildings. They would kill both leaders and blame each side for the other's death. "It's brilliant," Sophie said grimly. "In one move, they restart the war and eliminate the people who could stop it." "We need to warn your father," Jack said to Lyra. "He won't believe us. Not without proof." Lyra looked at the data they had gathered. "All we have are encrypted messages and suspicions. The conspirators covered their tracks well." "Then we expose them publicly," Vex said. "During the festival itself. We broadcast the evidence to everyone." "That's risky," Sophie said. "If we're wrong, or if we miss someone, the conspirators will still attack. Do we have a better option?" Lyra asked. Silence. They all knew the answer. It was risky, but it was all they had. They arrived on Thesara the night before the festival. The capital city was decorated with banners and lights. Human and Velaran flags hung side by side. People filled the streets celebrating. They believed the war was truly over. Jack looked at the crowds and felt sick. Tomorrow, many of these people would die, unless he stopped it. He met with Lyra in secret, in her private chambers in the palace. It was dangerous. If anyone saw him there, it would cause a scandal. But they needed to coordinate their final plans. "The speech begins at noon," Lyra said. "My father will speak first, then your president by hologram. That's when they'll strike. We plant our own people in the crowd, Jack said. Sophie and Vex, they watch for the bombers. And us? We'll be with our leaders, close enough to protect them if everything goes wrong. Lyra nodded. Then she looked at him, really looked at him. Jack, if we don't survive tomorrow, don't talk like that. No, listen, I need to say this. She took his hands. Finding you again, working with you, it's been the best part of this terrible war. You reminded me why I wanted peace. You reminded me of the girl I used to be before everything went dark. Jack pulled her close. You did the same for me. I was just going through the motions, surviving. You gave me hope again. They stood together in the quiet of her chambers. Two people from different worlds, brought together by childhood friendship and war and fate. If we survive tomorrow, Lyra said, what happens to us? I don't know, Jack admitted. Our people barely tolerate peace. A relationship between us would be impossible, difficult, but not impossible. Jack smiled. Nothing is impossible. We proved that by finding each other again. They kissed. It was gentle and desperate and filled with all the things they couldn't say. When they pulled apart, both had tears in their eyes. Tomorrow, Lyra said, we save our people. Then we figure out the rest. Together? Together. The next morning, Jack woke early. He put on his dress uniform, the one with all the medals he had earned during the war. He checked his weapon, hidden beneath his coat. He hoped he wouldn't need it. Sophie met him in the hotel lobby. Ready, sir? As ready as I'll ever be. They walked to the ceremonial square. It was already filling with people. A stage had been erected in the center, chairs for dignitaries, cameras everywhere. The whole galaxy would be watching. Jack took his place among the human delegation. He scanned the crowd looking for threats. Every face could be an enemy. Every package could be a bomb. On the other side of the stage, Lyra stood with her father. She wore formal robes, purple and silver. She looked regal and beautiful. Their eyes met across the distance. A silent promise. Whatever happened, they would face it together. Emperor Dravon stepped to the podium. The crowd quieted. Cameras focused. My people, he began, and our human friends. Today marks a new beginning. A chance to build something better than what we destroyed. Jack's earpiece crackled. Sophie's voice. I've got movement. North building, 3rd floor, could be a sniper. Vex, Jack whispered into his communicator. I see it, Vex replied. Moving to intercept. The Emperor continued speaking. We have lost much, but we have also learned. We have learned that war only brings suffering, that peace, though difficult, is worth fighting for. Another message from Sophie. Package under the stage. Looks suspicious. Jack's heart raced. It was happening. He started moving toward the stage, trying to be subtle. Then everything exploded into chaos. A shot rang out. The Emperor stumbled, but Lyra was already moving. She pushed her father down, covering him with her body. Guards swarmed the stage. In the crowd, someone screamed. Bomb! Jack ran. He jumped onto the stage, grabbing the Emperor and Lyra. Move! Now! They ran as the first explosion ripped through the ceremonial square. The blast threw people through the air. Screams filled the smoke. More shots. More explosions. The plan was falling apart. The conspirators had too many people, too many weapons. Jack saw him then. Craig Sutton, his old commanding officer, the man who had trained him. Sutton stood at the edge of the square, watching the chaos with satisfaction. You, Jack said. Sutton turned. He smiled. Miller, I should have known you'd figure it out. You always were too smart for your own good. Why, Craig, why start this again? Because humans are supposed to rule, not negotiate. The Valorans are weak. We should have crushed them. Sutton raised his weapon. But you got soft. Fell for one of them. Jack raised his own weapon. Behind Sutton he saw Valoran soldiers. General Corvin's men. The ones who had survived their leader's death. Humanity's strength isn't domination, Jack said. It's our ability to build bridges. To find common ground. That's weakness talking. No, that's wisdom. They fired simultaneously. Jack felt the bullet graze his side. His own shot hit Sutton in the chest. The older man fell. Across the square, Lyra faced General Corvin, second in command. The Valoran officer sneered at her. Your father shamed us by surrendering. We will restore our honor. Honor? Lyra's voice was ice. There's no honor in killing innocents. Real honor is choosing peace when you have the strength to fight. The officer lunged. Lyra moved, trained in combat since childhood. They fought. She was faster. She won. Sophie and Vex had disabled the other bombs. The snipers were captured. The conspiracy was broken. As the smoke cleared, Jack found Lyra. They stood together, both wounded, both exhausted. Around them, people were crying. Some from fear, some from relief. Emperor Dravon approached them. He looked older, tired. You saved my life. Both of you. We saved many lives, Father, Lyra said. The Emperor looked at Jack. Commander Miller, my daughter has told me about your childhood friendship, about your work together to stop this plot. Jack tensed. He didn't know what to expect. You remind me why I took that diplomatic posting 20 years ago, the Emperor continued. Why I believed humans and Velorans could coexist. Thank you for proving me right. Your Majesty, Jack began. No. Let me finish. The Emperor looked at Lyra, then back at Jack. I see how you look at each other. I'm not blind, and I'm not against it. If my daughter chooses you, I will support that choice. Lyra's eyes widened. Father, you saved my life and stopped a war. The least I can do is let you be happy, he smiled. Besides, what better symbol of peace than a union between our peoples? The human president, who had been watching by hologram throughout the attack, spoke up. I agree with Emperor Dravon. Commander Miller has served with distinction. If he chooses to build a bridge between our civilizations in this way, he has my full support. Jack and Lyra looked at each other. Around them, people were starting to notice. Whispers spread through the crowd. This won't be easy, Jack said quietly. Nothing worth doing is easy, Lyra replied. People will talk. They'll criticize. Some will call us traitors. Let them talk. Are you sure about this? Lyra smiled. I've never been more sure of anything. They joined hands. A simple gesture. But in that moment, it meant everything. It meant hope. It meant that peace was possible. It meant that the universe didn't have to be cruel. In the days that followed, Jack and Lyra became the faces of the new peace. They traveled together, speaking to crowds on both human and Veloran worlds. They told their story, childhood friends separated by war, reunited by fate, working together to save both their peoples. Emperor Dravon created a new position for them, the Interspecies Cultural Exchange Program. They would work to build understanding between humans and Velorans, creating opportunities for friendship, for cooperation, for peace. It was everything they had dreamed of as children. One night they stood on a balcony in the palace, looking at the stars. The same stars they had looked at 20 years ago, in the observation deck of New Horizon Station. Do you remember the promise we made? Lyra asked. That we'd stay friends forever, Jack said. That we'd work for peace. We kept it. Even when it seemed impossible. We kept our promise, Jack pulled her close. You know what this means, right? No more war. No more fighting. I think we can handle peace, Lyra said. What will we do with ourselves? Build, create, help others see what we see. That we're not so different. Humans, Velorans, all of us. We all want the same things, safety, love, a future for our children. Children? Jack raised an eyebrow. Lyra blushed. Eventually, maybe, if you want. Jack laughed. I want everything with you. Everything we dreamed of and more. They looked up at the stars, diamonds scattered by careless gods. Across the velvet sky they fall. Each one a wish, a hope, a dream. Each one a story yet untold. Their story was being told. A story of friendship and love. A story of war and peace. A story that proved humanity's greatest strength wasn't their weapons or their tactics. It was their ability to connect. To empathize. To love across any divide. Jack Miller had been a xenobiologist who became a warrior who became a peacemaker. His journey had been long and painful. But standing here with Lyra at his side, he knew it had been worth it. The war was over. The real work was just beginning. Building a future where children like they had been could grow up without fear. Where humans and Velorans weren't enemies but friends. It wouldn't be easy. There would be setbacks and struggles, but they would face them together, and maybe, just maybe, they would prove that the universe didn't have to be cruel. That hope could survive even the darkest wars. That love could bridge even the widest divides. That humanity, with all its flaws and violence, had one truly special quality: the ability to see the person beyond the alien, to choose understanding over fear, to choose peace